from Tech Channel. In this video, we'll talk about Dockerfile. So in our previous videos, we have learned how to build a container with an image, and we know that this image either we can pull from Docker Hub, that is a ready-built image, or we can create our own customized image, right? And this customized image is called as a Dockerfile. All right. So let's see how can this be done with the hands-on. But before that, I wanted to go with a little note on what is Dockerfile and also a few commands that are used to build the Dockerfile. Okay. So a Dockerfile, it is a script that uses the Docker platform to generate containers automatically. So you don't have to manually execute multiple things inside a container. Instead, you put everything together in a file, that is a Docker file, and a Docker file does everything for you. So it is essentially a text document that contains all the instructions that a user may use to create an image from the command line. Okay, so in this text file, in this file, you'll add a lot of instructions to build an image, and once you build this, image is built, and from this image, you can build a container. All right. So now let's see few commands which we use mostly to build a Docker file. So these are few commands I mentioned here. So the first one is from. So this is the base image. So you can mention it as anything like Ubuntu or any base image which you want to use. And the next one is run. So it is used to run instructions against the image. So we can have multiple run commands, like one to upgrade the system and one to install, and you can have multiple run commands. And the next one is CMD. The main purpose of CMD is to provide defaults for executing a container. So the user can easily override the default command when you use this. So here it can be only replaced or rewritten, but it cannot be appended. Okay, so and it is asked to have only one CMD command. So if a Docker file has multiple CMDs, then it only applies the instructions from the last one. The other CMD commands are ignored. All right, and next one is entry point. So it is similar to CMD, but the difference is it cannot be overridden, but can only be appended. Um, don't worry if you don't understand the difference between CMD and entry point. I'll do a little bit of hands-on on this, and I'll make sure that you get a good understanding on the differences. And the next one is work directory. So in whatever directory you wish to work, you can mention it under work directory. And you have copy. So copy is to copy a file from your local machine to the Docker container. And add the similar things as copy. It copies the file, but also it has an additional advantage to download any packages from URL. So say for example you want to download a Tomcat package, then you can just mention the download URL of Tomcat, add a space download URL of the Tomcat, and then wherever you want to place that package to, the path you can mention. So that is a major difference between copy and add. And expose statement maps a port into the container. We have already seen this in previous videos, right? And you have env is for environment variables. So we can define key value pairs here, like for database we can mention the database name, passwords, and lot many things, lot many environment variables. And you have maintainer. So maintainer is the person who is going to maintain this image. So this is for just for reference, just for our reference. So tomorrow if anyone wants to see who created this image, they can easily check with the maintainer, and they can identify who created this image. And you have volume. So volume creates a mount point such that the container can use it. Yeah, so we can mount a volume to the container. All right, so I hope you understood a bit on this. Let us now go to the hands-on part, and we'll create a simple Docker file, and also we'll see the difference between CMD and entry point. All right, so I'm here. I'll just log in. Okay, so yeah, so I have already created two Docker files. I'll run through the Docker files now. So I'll say bi docker file. So yeah, the file name should be Dockerfile first thing. And now when you enter the file, we have the I've entered the from Ubuntu. So this is the base image we are mentioning here, and maintain it just for our reference. We are just mentioning it as reform tech. and I'm going to use two run commands here. One is to update this image, and the other one is to install Nginx. So once this is done, you can use either add or copy. So I'm using add here to copy the index file to the default location of Nginx. Okay, and entry point to enable the Nginx service. I'm going to use this, and the daemon I'm making it as off because I wanted to run it in the foreground, not in the background. So if you say daemon on, then it will run it in the background and you won't be able to see it in the UI. Alright, so I just want to keep it as off, and I'm going to expose it in the port 80. Okay, so in our previous video on Docker images, you might have noticed that we used HTTPD image, which we pulled from Docker Hub, and we created a container out of it, and we logged into that container, and we updated it, and then we changed the HTML file to reflect something like reform tech, right? So we are going to do the same thing with this Docker file, but we're just going to use the Nginx image here. That's the only difference, but everything else is same because I just want to give the same example because you can easily understand this. All right, so now let's create our first Docker file. So we have to build the Docker file. So as you could see here, I'm copying the myindex.html file to this file. So it means that I'm going to change the Nginx default page to myindex.html. So this myindex.html, it's there in my local. I'll just show you that. I just made a small change to it. I just mentioned reform tech instead of Nginx. Not much of change. So as you could see, I said welcome to reform tech here, and here also welcome to reform tech. That's the only change I made. So all right. So let's now build our first Docker file. So we have to use a command docker build -t to tag, and you have to mention the image name here. So I'll say nginx image, and the docker file location. So if you have the docker file in this current directory, then you can mention it as dot. If not, you have to mention the path. All right, so let me execute this command, and as you could see here, there are several steps. These are the steps which you have mentioned in the Docker file. All these steps gets executed, and finally you will see that an image is built and it has been tagged also. Since we do not give any version, a specific version like v1 or v2, it is taking it as latest. All right, so let's clear a screen, and let me now check the Docker images. Yeah, as you could see here, you have the Nginx image which we just created with the tag as latest. Okay, all right. So now let's build a container out of this image. Okay, so you all know the command to build the container by now. So it is docker run -pip of port and 8080 colon 80 and hyphen name of the container, and hyphen D to run it in background, and our image name. So it's Nginx image. Okay, so now a container is created with that image. Let's check whether that container is running. Yeah, it's up and running now. So I've been exposing this to 8080. So now let's open a Firefox browser, and I'm going to hit this container. I'm going to see whether we're able to see the Reform Tech page there now. Okay, let me open my Firefox. I'm here, and let's say 0.0.0.0 colon 8080. Alright, so here you can see the Nginx page which we modified to Reform Tech, just the name, that's it. Not much of a change, but yeah, so this is how a Docker file works. Instead of we manually getting inside the container, upgrading things, and applying various commands, you can just mention all those instructions in a single Docker file, and you can build the Docker file which will be an image, and if you build that image, your container gets created. Alright, so that is it about the Docker file, and I wanted to show you the difference between the CMD and entry point before we end this video. Let me jump back to this. Yeah. Okay, I'll clear my screen and I'll switch to another folder which I have called task 2. Okay, here if you could see I have a Docker file and it's a very simple Docker file. It has only 2 lines in it. So I'm going to have an base image as Ubuntu and I'll say CMD. I'm going to echo welcome to Reform Tech. That is it. Okay, it's a very simple Docker file. Okay, just wanted to show you the difference between CMD and entry point. All right, so yeah, so what we'll go do is now we will build this Docker image and we will see what the output comes out of this. Okay, so I'll say Docker build hyphen T and the name of the image I'll say CMD image maybe. And at this time we're just going to give the version name, okay, so that you can create multiple version. I just want to show you that also. So I'm just giving you an v1 instead of by default I'll take latest, right? So I just want to give a version name to it. And the Docker file, it is present in this current directory, so I'm just going to give a dot here. So yeah, now the image is built from the Docker file and it is tagged as CMD v1. Let's check it. If you say Docker images, yeah, you have the CMD image and it's been tagged as one. All right. So now let's see the output of the image which we built. Okay, I'll say Docker and the image name Docker run and image name. So image name is nginx. Oh, sorry, it's CMD image, right? So CMD image. So if you execute this command, it will not work because by default it will search for CMD image latest tag. Since we have named it as v1, we should also mention colon v1 here. Okay, now if you could see whatever we have mentioned in the Docker file, it has been reflected here as welcome to Reform Tech. Okay, so now we'll try to override this. Okay, so as we all know that CMD operation can be overwritten, but entry point cannot be overwritten, but it can only be appended, right? So now let's try to override this and let's see what is happening. Okay, I'll say Docker run image name, that is CMD image v1, and I'll say echo instead of sorry, echo, and instead of reform tech I just wanted to say happy learning. Okay, let's run this and oops, sorry for that. I happy learning. Yeah. Oh, wait a bit. So it says echo happy building. Okay, I've not given a space here. Okay. Okay, all right. So yeah, now you're able to see that happy learning instead of welcome to Reform Tech. So this is being overwritten. All right. So the main advantage of CMD is that the user can easily override the default command. Okay, and it cannot be appended whatever you give here, but it can easily be overridden. All right, so now let's see how it works for the entry point. So I'm just going to this file and I'll edit this. I'll just say entry point instead of CMD and let me save this. I'll clear my screen. Now we are going to build another image from that container, not the same CMD one. This is version 1, right? So let's create another image with version 2. All right, so the image is built now. Let's check Docker images. Yeah, it's there. So now let's try to do the same thing which we did for CMD. So we'll say uh, Docker run image name. So this is v2. So if you do this, you'll see the welcome to reform tech. So this is the one we have mentioned in the Docker file. And now we are going to, we'll try to, we'll try to append it. It should append, okay, because we are using entry point. So, so I'll say Docker run CMD image v2, and I'll say echo happy learning. So it should also give a echo in the output, but that's okay. I just want to show you that it is yeah, it is also bringing the echo here. But yeah, so as you could see, it is not been overridden, but you can see the full text whatever which we gave here. Alright, so this is the difference between the CMD and entry point. I hope you understood this difference, which is also very important. And this is about the Docker file. So you can have multiple instructions mentioned in your Docker file, and you can create your own customized image of it instead of pulling it from Dockerfile, Docker Hub. You can have your own image with the Docker file. All right. So in the next video, maybe I'll explain about how to push your newly created customized image to Docker Hub so that anyone else can use the same image. All right. So that is it for this video. Yeah, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you.